to the McLaren Thought Leadership Center. We're looking at how technology could revolutionize healthcare for us all. Our next guest made medical history by performing the world's first virtual reality surgery. And he wants to change the way we teach the next generation of med students.
Small swap, please.
Shafi Ahmed is the surgeon whose instruments include a virtual reality camera.
I see virtuality as the future platform for learning.
With just a smartphone and virtual reality headset, students can virtually scrub in and join Dr. Ahmed in the operating theater.
You can actually teach not just one person or two persons, you can teach thousands of people together.
Giving viewers a close-up 3D view of every incision as it happens.
When I did the live operation last year in April, we had 55,000 people logging in across the globe at the same time, just showing the power of simple connectivity. Thank you, everybody.
Dr. Shafi Ahmed joins me now in the studio. So first, let me address the obvious thing, which is what you're wearing on your right hand.
So this is a prototype that we're making at the moment. We're developing in terms of virtual reality. This is a haptic glove. So what will happen when you have your headset on, you immerse into this virtual world, we're trying to recreate touch and sensation and temperature. So on your device with motion sensors, you have to pick up a ball. It could be as cold as an ice cube and it will feel cold, and if you like the texture of an ice cube. And the idea is to simulate surgical operations in the future.
All right, so that means you would learn how to perform surgery virtually by wearing this, feeling what you would feel if you were actually performing the surgery?
Absolutely. We're trying to recreate an operation and trying to recreate the feel, the environment that you're in, and this will be able to hopefully replicate a real operation in due course.
Let's talk a little bit about some of the operations you've performed. What is virtual reality surgery today, as technology allows us to do today?
So virtual reality is when you're immersed in essentially a headset. What we have been doing last year or so is creating operations using 360 cameras. So the idea is to record the entire field of view in 360, which is synonymous with virtual reality. Also, we're creating CGI animations so that you're recreating simulation areas within that space to simulate live operations.
And what's the advantage of that? I mean, can you give us an example of an operation that you've performed with 360 camera and film technology around you and the advantages that that has?
Let's go back to the past and talk about education as a whole. Now, I'm an educationalist, and I've been teaching the last 20 years, and teaching hasn't changed for a long time, maybe over 100 years, for example. And in the operating theatre, for example, we have lots of medical students and trainees all clambering over one another to see an operation because the field of view is so small. And this has been accepted with dogma and tradition for many years. What VR allows you to do is record the operation, and anyone around the world can actually put up a headset, access the operation using a smartphone and app, which is a fairly easy way of making it easy for them, and being in the operating theatre with you. So actually they get great views of the operation.
Is there a disadvantage to not being there in person, though? I mean, what are the, you know what I mean? I mean, is it better to learn the old-fashioned way?
This doesn't replace actual experience. This augments training. And we've got to think about how we move things on. We've got young students who are very much the smartphone generation, who can use technology. They want new ways of learning. And I think these are the ways they're going to embrace in the future. And I think VR is a natural platform in the future to teach our medical students.
How many people are we talking about have benefited from this?
Well, I've done various things. So last year when we did the operation in April, the first live 360 operation, that was watched by 55,000 people in 140 countries and 4,000 cities. Just showing you the power of connection. You can suddenly stream live an operation and people are interested around the world to scale up education, improve their standards. So you're making it more equitable, and that's my mission.
So 55,000 people watched this operation?
They did, yes.
Most of them, I imagine, people interested in medicine students, medical students that perhaps don't have that kind of access where they live.
And that's right, because I do a lot of global health work, and we've got to work out how we make healthcare more equitable and more fair. And these are the ideas, so you can actually penetrate markets in Africa, in Asia, where historically the education hasn't been as good, and therefore we can use this technique to make sure everyone gets empowered, everyone feels that they're able to access free education, which is very important to us.
Absolutely. Samuel, you have questions from the audience.
Well, Hala, you won't forget the name of our next audience member anytime soon because her name is also Hala.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Hala. I'm a pharmacist. So today's question is about what's next. I know VR have been all over healthcare. So how do you see the future, Mr. Shafi, for VR?
Well, I think VR itself is fairly new still. We're discovering what we need to do. Now, our company, Medical Realities, has produced an app, the first app that trains people in virtual reality. So virtual reality would go into gaming, in industry, into cinema, but also for training. And we figure out the value of that experience, and that's what we're doing at the moment.
How far along are you with this prototype, by the way?
Oh, this will, over the next 6 months, we'll have it working in real time, so we'll be able to do something and simulating a small operation using virtual haptics as well.
And so what, students would be able to wear this and kind of virtually operate on a virtual person?
On a virtual surgeon, yeah. There'll be a virtual surgeon on a virtual patient.
Right.
That's my
Well, I guess that's a good way to learn. That way you can make all the mistakes you want and no one gets hurt. Samuel, any more questions?
The next question for our guest is a personal one, but maybe it'll help us better understand why he does what he does. Zach?
What type of barriers have you had to overcome?
So what type of barriers have you had to overcome to get where you are in your profession and also get to the point where you're really using innovative technology like this?
That's a great question, by the way, and actually really pertinent to our discussion on innovation. So I guess being a surgeon, I've been trained for many years. It's a long time to become a surgeon and become a specialist. But then when you're innovating and translating innovation to clinical practice is difficult. The barriers are about ethics, about confidentiality, about doing the right thing for the patient, ultimately, and being safe. So we've addressed all of those at my hospital, making sure that we've mitigated risk where it's necessary and making sure that we innovate at the same time and taking the whole journey with us, with the patients as well, who are very much in support of our work that we do at the hospital.
All right, so there are many barriers, I mean, ethical issues that you have to consider as well as scientific ones, as well as, I imagine, legal ones, a whole host of things to take into account, as always, when it comes to medicine and treating patients. Samuel, any more questions?
Yeah, we have a very pertinent question from Callum, perfect for the type of times that we're living in.
Hi, Shafi. I was just wondering, with more and more technology being used in medicine in general, and particularly in the operating theatre, I wondered what your thoughts were on the risks posed by hacking.
We heard, of course, of the NHS hack. So here you have technology. Anytime there's technology or anytime you can store information anywhere, it is vulnerable to hacking.
There's no question. I think all systems are vulnerable, and no system is perfectly going to be safe. And we had problems with the NHS being cyber-attacked, as we know, and this affected my own hospital and my own clinical practice. I think you can only mitigate risk as far as you possibly can. You have to strive for innovation. You have to translate into clinical practice, and with that comes an element of risk. And that is how you overcome that, how you explain that to your patients, make sure they're on that journey with you, but also you do your best to mitigate it as best as possible and reduce it as far.
What are you most excited about if you project yourself 10 years into the future?
Well, I really think about this whole vision of autonomous surgeons, autonomous doctors. The first point of contact in a very few years won't be a human being, it will be an artificial intelligence machine, an avatar, something that looks like me, for example, that you'll ask questions to, it'll be an algorithm-based and taking care of most of the diagnoses that we have and give you a prescription. Also, in the operating theatre, it'd be great to see how autonomous surgeons or robots might be able to support you and augment your work, making that easier and be able to do more complex operations. So the question is, people ask me, can you ever be replaced? I think I can, maybe 30 years down the line.
I'm going to shake your hand, Dr. Shafi Ahmed, here in the real world, not the virtual world. Samuel, take it away.
Wearable technology is unavoidable these days. They've sold hundreds of millions of these devices, but do they actually make us healthier? I spent 1 week covered in wearables, and coming up, you're going to see my failures and my successes.